House Speaker Nancy Pelosi doubled down Wednesday on her call to delay the State of the Union. In a letter to President Trump, she made clear the event will not be held during the government shutdown. It's currently scheduled for January 29th. However, a CBS News poll out Wednesday finds Americans overall are split on what should happen. 77% of Republicans say the president should deliver the address despite the shutdown. The same amount of Democrats say he should not. To break this all down, CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, is here. He's also the host of the podcast, Where Did You Get This Number? Hi, Anthony. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So who normally watches the State of the Union? Does everybody watch it, or is that also a partisan event?
Well, that's a perfect question because it puts those poll numbers that you showed into context. So right now, Americans split on whether or not the president should deliver the State of the Union or not, but Republicans think that he should, and Democrats much less so. Well, that's kind of reflected if you look at who watches the State of the Union over time. It's usually more people from the president's party. Think about it, kind of makes sense. They want to hear their persons that they support, their ideas and their assessment of the country. So they're a little more likely to tune in. So maybe not surprising in this poll, we find more than 7 to 10 Republicans want the president to still deliver it, less so for Democrats.
Now, this is the longest partial government shutdown in history. Do your poll numbers tell us how Americans are dealing with it?
One of the things that stood out from this one is the 6 in 10 Americans who say that they think it's causing serious problems and have serious concerns about its impact. And then another group, another third, say it's causing problems, though not necessarily as serious. So you get this large majority that see it having an impact.
Do these answers break down on partisan lines as well?
Well, they do. And Republicans are a little bit less likely to say that they see serious problems. And part of that is that they're very strongly behind the president in his stance of waiting to get funding for the border wall. And so part of that is maybe, not seeing as much of the problems coming out of the shutdown.
Now, sometimes I got to be honest with you, some of the numbers make my head spin a little bit. And this next one, the majority of Americans say they want the Democrats to agree to a border wall to end the government shutdown. But the majority of Americans also say they want the government to end they want the president to end the government shutdown without the border wall. So how do those two things dovetail?
Yeah, well, there's a common thread there. They want people to get along in Washington and end the shutdown. Okay,
by any means necessary,
whatever it takes, right? So what you do is, and this is a great point, because in reading a poll, you need to look at often more than one question. And what you see is that each side wants their own partisan side to stay dug in. Democrats say the president should cave in, and Republicans say the Democrats should cave in. You sort of add them up, and you get that majority that says somebody ought to give in, or both ought to give in, if that's possible.
What I don't understand is, how do you have a majority that says this is the way it should be done, and a majority that says no, this is the way it should be done?
They're two separate questions. And so when you add up the totals that say each, throw in the independents who would just basically saying to us, look, figure it out.
Right. Bottom line is just open the government.
Right. And that's not unusual. When we see a lot of times, like, the partisans dig in, everybody wants it to end, but nobody wants to lose. And so the partisans dig in, and everybody else kind of says, you guys go figure that out. Right. And that's a lot of what you're seeing here.
And so tell us about the president's approval rating at this point. Is it slipping? Is it going up? Is it holding steady?
It has gone down some. It's gone down from the last time that we polled. It's now 3 points lower. Underpinning some of this is a little bit of erosion of support for the moment, and I emphasize that because we've seen these things bounce around, a little bit among Republicans, a little bit among conservatives. Now, those things are notable.
And maybe a little bit up from those Democrats, those independents who would support him?
Somewhat, yes. But, one of the things I always emphasize is there are things that could be transient, and we have to watch and see if things change over time. One single poll is not enough to sort of declare whether someone still is supportive or still not supportive of the president over time. And we've also still seen that Republicans say they feel the president overall cares about their needs and problems.
Right.
And that's something that we'll have to see over time if these numbers might bounce back.
And a slippage of 3 percentage points is not that much.
It isn't a lot. No. I mean, we do see consistency in that and the movement among some of the key groups. So we should certainly trust those numbers, but at the same time, we ought not to interpret them for the long haul. I think we see what happens over time. And of course, if the government shutdown continues, then we'll watch that as well.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much. Always fun talking numbers with you.
Lots of fun. Thank you.
And still ahead.